Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So today's going to be a little bit of a doozy for you, because we're going to get real honest in here. So this was a topic that I wanted to talk about a couple weeks ago, and then another more exciting topic came to mind, and so I talked about that one. But today we're going to talk about radical responsibility, radical self-responsibility. And this is something that I 1,000% believe is missing in many people's lives. Now, I don't mean radical self-responsibility in the sense that you take the blame for everything. That is not what I'm suggesting here, okay? Radical responsibility here means you take your part in what it is that you're creating, in the situation, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was journaling a couple weeks ago, and I was trying to figure out why this person kept triggering me, right? And I am a firm believer that if somebody is triggering me, there's something for me to look at. If it's a repeat trigger, there is something that I've got to look at, and I've got to go deeper. And I was journaling about this, and I was getting so triggered about this, and it was irritating the crap out of me. And I was like, what is this situation here? What's actually going on? And as I was journaling, it dawned on me that this person lacks self-responsibility. Lacks it. Almost 100%. Maybe not. I don't know. From my view, definitely lacks the self-responsibility. And it was irritating to me because I thought, well, I apologized for my part. I did my thing. But there didn't seem to be any ownership on their side. And it was making me crazy. So I'm journaling through this, and I'm thinking to myself, how do I get past this? Because this makes me crazy. Absolutely makes me crazy, right? When somebody else is like, oh, well, it's their fault. Oh, it's their fault. Oh, it's their fault. Oh, it's not our fault we lost the game. It's their fault. Oh, I had no part of it. It's their fault, right? That makes me nuts, as you can tell. And so, again, I am not suggesting that you take the blame for everything, okay? It takes two people to make a mess, right? There's that new song, who sings it? Post Malone, maybe? I had some help, right? Where he was like, I didn't mess this all up by myself, right? And I had some help in it. And now you're all going to go Google that song if you haven't listened to it already. But it's this idea that, like, I didn't create this situation entirely on my own. There are two parties here, right, involved in this. And I took ownership for mine. I would like you to take ownership for your part, right? But here's the thing. Not everybody is ready for that level of radical self-responsibility, radical self-ownership. Not everybody is willing to do that. So how do you move through that with somebody who is making you crazy in this instance? Well, the thing that I rely on quite frequently when somebody is triggering me, when I'm annoyed by somebody else, by this part of their personality, when it irritates the crap out of me, the exercise that I do quite frequently that really helps is I imagine that person as my youngest daughter. Okay, male, female, whatever, right? I imagine that person as a child. Okay, because if you are not taking ownership of your part of a situation, you are an emotional child. Sorry, not sorry, right? Like, we're just going to be honest about this. I told you this was going to be a little bit of a doozer today, right? Like, I warned you ahead of time. If you want to say F you and turn this off, that's cool. Absolutely cool. I get it, right? But my guess is you're probably have this with someone else in your life. And maybe it's gotten to the point where you've just totally shut that person out and you're like, I don't give a crap anymore. You suck. I'm done. We're cutting ties, right? If it's with a family member, that can feel a little bit harder to do because you're like, I see that person. I have to be around that person. So how can I begin to heal this relationship even though that person is not willing to do anything about the ownership in their part, right? Here's where this little exercise comes in, okay? So I imagine this person as a child because they are an emotional child at that point. Do I act like an emotional child sometimes? Yes, we talked about that on a previous episode. In this instance, though, we want to imagine that person as a child, okay? Now, if a child spilled milk and blamed it on the dog, even though the dog was outside and not in the house, right? How are you going to handle that child? Right? For me, I'm not going to yell and scream at that child because then they're going to be terrified of spilling milk again. And so I'm going to say, hey, can you just help me clean up the milk a little bit? I know you told me that you didn't do it, but can you just help me clean this up? And then as we're cleaning it up, chances are this kid's going to go, you know what, Mommy, I'm sorry I spilled the milk. I know. It's okay. Just be honest with me next time. I'm not mad that you spilled the milk. I just want you to be honest. Right? So how do you parlay that into a conversation with an adult? That's an excellent question. Let's dive into this. Okay? So let's say, let me see, I'm coming up with a good scenario here. Okay. So let's say you are in a situation, okay, where, Mom, I'm sorry, I love you. I'm going to use you as an example. Okay. Let's say you're in a situation where somebody asked you for help. Okay. But they were not clear as to how they wanted something done. And so when that thing was done, they were upset about how it was done. And instead of saying thank you, they were mad at you about helping in the first place. Okay. I'm recalling this example when I was a child, right? I'm just going to give you more information because I feel like I don't want to lose you with the vagueness of this, right? So I was at home. I was probably in high school, and I am a clean freak. I will admit to it, right? I like things cleaned and organized. My husband's a little bit of a hoarder. It makes me crazy, right? But I like things clean and organized. And so my mother has this closet in her downstairs bathroom, and it's like the catch-all for everything. And I thought, you know what? Mom's at work. I'm going to organize this and clean it and just trim it all down, right? And just keep the essentials. And that way there's so much more room and you can actually find things, right? This was my thought process, right? So I sit down one day, I don't know, it must have been during the summer or something when my mom was at work and I was home. And I grab a trash bag and I'm cleaning and I'm organizing, I'm throwing stuff away that's old, right? Cleaning, organizing, all the things. And she gets home and I'm so excited to show her how clean this closet is. She opens the door. She legitimately gasps and I'm like, yes, nailed it, right? She's pissed because I have now thrown away things that she deemed essential and I did not. And she still to this day, 20 plus years later, will be like, hey, remember that time you cleaned out my bathroom closet? Yep, I do. Right? So here is the instance where I was like, yeah, okay, I screwed up. I didn't do it the way that you wanted to, but now it's done. We can't undo it. So how do we move forward? So moving forward, my mom had to start to give very explicit instructions as to how she wanted something cleaned or organized right? I do the same thing with my kids. They know, this is a very easy line. Is the kitchen clean to mom's standards or your standards? Our standards. And they go back in the kitchen and they clean it because they know what my standard means at this point. But it has to be that ownership that they have to take over it. Because if I just say clean the kitchen and I don't give them a specification, my standards, your standards, then I have to take the ownership that I didn't specify. Do you see where I'm at here? So while I may have asked my kids to clean the kitchen, if I didn't tell them to what level I wanted the kitchen cleaned. Now, additionally, I feel like I shouldn't have to say to mom's standards all the time, but they're children. They don't remember these things all the time. And so I have to say, okay, clean the kitchen to mom's standards. Or one that I recently started doing with my children, because empty hangers are a thing at my house all the time. So when the laundry is done and I tell them to put their clothes away, I had to specify, when you put your clothes away, please bring me the empties. Bring me the hangers that have nothing on it in your closet so that I have them for the next time I do the laundry. My youngest is awesome at this. She had a whole pile of hangers that she brought to me last night before she went to bed. The other kids, they need reminding, and that's okay. They're children, right? So when you have radical self-responsibility, again, not taking the blame. You're not going to take the blame for everybody's everything, okay? But when you are responsible for yourself, you show up differently. And you can start to see people differently because you're like, you know what? I took ownership for this part. While you may not have apologized for any part of your part, I'm going to have to be the adult here, right? And maybe you have a conversation. Maybe you decide it's not worth a conversation because some little tiffy things are not worth a conversation. But if it's stewing and it's been a while, it may be a conversation that's warranted. And not everybody's going to want to have the conversation with you because you're the adult, right? Right? Okay? You've just got to take your own level of radical responsibility. Own it. Yeah, you screwed up. Okay, fine. What are we going to do differently this time? It's okay that you screw up. It is okay to make a mistake. But it's not your teammate's fault. It's not the referee's fault. It's not your partner's fault. It's not your family's fault. On some level, you've got to take your ownership, take your life into your own hands and decide, you know what? I don't like the way this is going anymore. I'm going to change it. And take the ownership for it. You made a mistake. You're human. It happens. Part of the thing. So, when it comes to beginning to take your own responsibility, this is where you don't beat yourself up. This is where you begin to have that conversation with yourself as if you are that child, right? You don't know better until you know better. And sometimes we have these repeating patterns that we have to heal from that just keep showing up. And so, let's say you don't have the retirement that you want, or the money in the bank account that you want, or you have too much debt, right? Or you eat too much sugar, or you're not exercising. Give yourself a clean slate. Forgive yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do better now. I know better. Now I'm going to do better. And that's going to require some changing and some different hardwiring that's happening. It's going to require you giving yourself a whole bunch of grace. But taking ownership for your part it's going to change your whole life. And it's awesome when you do it. Sometimes you do want to be the little person and, you know, all the other things, right? But taking that ownership for it and being like, you know what? Yeah, I screwed up. Sorry. Can we move past it? How do we move past it? Okay? So, I'm sending you so much love. I'm also sending your inner child a whole bunch of love as well. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Also, I do have spots available for private mentoring. If you are seeking that accountability like we talked about on the previous episode, you've got the plan, maybe you're struggling with the follow through. I have different levels of private coaching. One that a lot of people really love just for that accountability is my Voxer program, where we just have Voxer. We do a single strategy session right out of the gate, and then I Voxer support you throughout it. That is awesome for accountability and follow through. I additionally have another level up, which is just my regular private mentoring, where we do a monthly call and the Voxer support. This is really powerful as well. This is for people who love kind of that monthly check-in, and it's just a little bit of a course correction most of the time because you know what you're doing. We've got a plan in place, we've strategized, and we're just tweaking it along the way to actually get you where you want to go. So if you are interested in that, again, I do have spots available for that. You can head over to my website, or you can reach out to me, stephaniesnyderphd.com, or you can find me on Instagram. You can email me, all the things. And if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.